All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Dynasty Wire. If you're brand new, welcome to the Dynasty Wire. My name is Ivan Herrera, and in this episode, we have so much to go over. Well, first and foremost,
Sir.
we are back. Spencer and I have been off for a minute, and with that, let me go ahead and bring up my good friend over here, Mr. Spencer Smith. What's up, man?
Yes, sir. Hey, man. I've been doing good, man. I'm glad that we're finally getting back to this. It's been a crazy
Yes.
couple of weeks for the both of us, man. Both of us personal lives and main jobs that we do. It's been crazy for the both of us, man. But I'm glad to be back. Glad to be back.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been 2 crazy weeks, and both me and Spencer run our own personal channels, and then of course we have, just like he alluded to, we have our full-time jobs, and of course everything else in between. But we are back here for an episode, and the episode that we are going over today is called the Dynasty Rookies, the ones that you should target and ones that you should avoid. And of course, before we get into any of that, we're going to first kick it off with some news around the league. And that's where Mr. Spencer Smith shines. So, Spencer, the floor is all yours.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's just get right into it. So, Bucks star OT Tristan Wirfs is holding out of OTAs to prevent injury as he seeks a long-term deal, per Jeremy Fowler. The photographer allegedly assaulted by Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice is now seeking for the charges to be dropped. So this would actually be pretty big. And in some other Rashee Rice kind of news, just while we're kind of on this topic, he is participating in the team's voluntary offseason program that started a couple days ago, but he will be volunteering in that. So the good thing about the photographer at least requesting to the police for the charges to be dropped is that if they were to be dropped, we knew kind of by a lot of credible people over on the Twitter sphere that based on the first incident, just the driving incident, that Rashee Rice would be out for probably 2 games, maybe 3. And then, of course, when this came out, now we're looking at maybe even half the season, maybe even more. So if this gets dropped, we can be pretty confident that Rashee Rice would still probably be suspended 2 or 3 games, but that would be it. And in my opinion, that would be the most. So it could be possible that if this gets dropped, somehow they're able to make it to where he's only suspended 1 game, maybe not even suspended at all. But I wouldn't be surprised if this gets dropped. He still is suspended 2 or 3 games, but that would definitely be a lot better than what potentially could happen if these charges are not dropped. Former Jets and Seahawks safety Jamal Adams is visiting with the Ravens today, per Adam Schefter. And speaking of the Ravens, QB Lamar Jackson has reportedly slimmed down all the way to 205 pounds, 25 pounds lighter than his 2022 playoff playing weight. This could be the fastest version of Lamar Jackson that we've seen. When he did win MVP the first time he was slimmed down, I don't know exactly what his weight was then, but I know a lot of people have said it's very similar to the weight that he's at now, slimming down all that weight. The Jaguars are working tirelessly to sign QB Trevor Lawrence to a contract extension that could be worth over $50 million per season. And the reason this is interesting is there's this guy on Instagram and TikTok. His name is Frank Michael Smith, I believe is his name. If you don't follow him, definitely should. But he posted a video recently, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about the issue that the NFL is at now with quarterbacks. And this just opened an entire can of worms of discussion. And Ivan, let me get your take on this as well. But basically, his stance is that the market for QB has now, it's too high. The quarterbacks get paid way too much. And that the only success we've seen with, I can't remember the number that he said off the top of my head, and I probably should have wrote this down, but the percentage of a team's cap that has to be devoted to the quarterback position now has only been proven to work with one quarterback, and that was Patrick Mahomes. So, and I think the number that he said that is typical is something like what Matthew Stafford got paid in 2021. I think that's under 20% of a team's cap to the quarterback, like 15% or something. But these teams, I mean, for example, Trevor Lawrence, do you think that he is worth $50 million a season?
Well, with this market, I would say, yeah, I think he's that kind of quarterback, the one that is able to elevate the talent around him. And I think we saw, I mean, it's easy to look at his rookie season and think about how bad that was, but that was also the Urban Meyer experience. So I think a lot of that plays
That's
into
got to be
factor.
thrown out.
Yeah, absolutely. But now you have Doug Peterson there. You have some weapons that they have invested in with Brian Thomas. So I feel optimistic about Trevor Lawrence because we've seen some glimpses of him being successful, and I believe he could be able to put that all together for a successful season this upcoming year too. Oh, I think we muted you. Let me unmute you. There you go. There you go. Now you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're all back. Yep.
All right.
No worries.
We're technical difficulty, baby. Hey, look, we've been gone for 2 weeks, and something had to happen. As long as that's the only thing that happens today, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I think in this market, yes, I think in this market,
Oh.
I can agree. I think the issue for me is any other time. Now, it's definitely hard to say because of inflation and also just the fact that teams are getting more per cap every single season. So, what is 50 million now versus 45 million 4 years ago? I definitely see Trevor Lawrence as a 45 million type of guy. And I know that's 5 million less, but ultimately, I mean, that's $20 million less over the span of 4 seasons. So I don't know. I think that definitely in this market, you got to pay Trevor Lawrence. I brought this up in one of the videos yesterday that I posted, and somebody brought up the fact that the numbers for Trevor Lawrence and Gardner Minshew are very similar. And so it's just, to me, it is a little bit crazy. The fact that their numbers are so similar and that he will get paid obviously $50 million per season. But that does segue into the last bit of news that I have here. And let me get your take on this. What about Tua? I mean, how do you feel about Tua getting paid possibly that much money?
I like it too. I think the main thing, and I think that your point is a really solid one. It just depends how they're going to structure the contract because you don't want it to hamper your ability to be able to make any kind of moves to improve your roster, especially if your quarterback is taking most of the salary, which we're seeing the issue right now with the Cowboys. So I feel if you could provide a way to structure a contract very similar to that, how the Eagles are doing with Jalen Hurts, where it's not really so top heavy, which allows them to make extensions to other weapons that they have, like AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. I think it just really depends on how it's structured. So to answer your question, I believe that Tua and Trevor are both worthy of contracts. It just depends on how they're going to structure it, because that's going to obviously determine how well they're able to either retool or make sure that they're keeping pieces around those guys to keep that team in contention.
Yeah, because Tua right now has missed most of the team's voluntary offseason workouts since April 15th, likely related to contract status. So everything that I'm seeing is that his contract will and could and should eclipse that of what Jared Goff received. So, but yeah, man, that's all the news around the league.
Well, there you go, man. It was so good it just feels good to be back, man. I know it's been a while, and I'm really excited because, over on the Ivan Herrera show, we've been doing some mock drafts, and I know that we've been talking about doing that for ourselves as well here on the Dynasty Wire. But it just feels good to hear from you, man. I know it's been a while, and I think we're having a bro moment here because it's been some time. Because you know what, a little behind the scenes here. Even when we weren't, no, hold on. I'll back up. Even when we were doing our live streams, rather, if we weren't doing our live streams, we would also either text or hit each other up just to call, see how one's doing. But just to tell you how busy we've been, we haven't even done that because of, I know you've had, some crazy stuff at work and everything like that. And my little one's finishing school.
So for those who don't know, my main job is basically it's loss prevention for the local Walmart here where I live. And ever since I got out of the Marines, that's just what I've been doing. So, every year the store does inventory, and the store that I'm at now is a newer store, recently changed over to this new store, and the inventory process the past couple of weeks has just been insane. And it gets even worse. It gets even worse when those market people come, those regional people come, because then the people you're working with are running around like, chickens with their head cut off. And so the past couple of weeks has just been go mode and literally finished all the inventory stuff this past Friday. So like it has been almost every day for the past like couple weeks. I've had a couple days off, but man, yeah, it just feels good to finally be back in the rhythm of things.
Yeah,
And so, today's episode might be a little short because we're just trying to get an episode out there, trying to get back in the flow of things. We'll be
right.
back on schedule next week, and so long as nothing crazy happens. But yeah, man, I know it's been crazy for you as well with, you got your kids and graduating school and kind of getting done with all that. So
Right.
it just feels good to be back, man.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go ahead and transition and get into the meat of this episode, which is Dynasty rookies that we are targeting and some that we're
Yep.
avoiding. So the way that this is going to work is that me and Spencer are both going to share 2 rookies that we're excited about and 2 that we're maybe fading away. And a lot of this may not be just because we don't believe that they're talented, but maybe because of draft capital situation, guys that we may have thought that we're going to be in better circumstances, which of course is going to lead to better fantasy output for them. So the
Yep.
way that this will work is that me and Spencer will both go back and forth. So I figured, Spencer, I can go ahead and go first on the rookie that I'm looking
Yep.
forward to most. And then from there, you can share yours. You can share
Sounds
your
good.
2 after I share my 2. Then from there, I'll have you open up the 2 that you're looking to fade. That way we get a good rhythm there. So with that, let's go ahead and get to my first one. And my first one is going to be Troy Franklin. And he is out of the Denver Broncos. And it's crazy because I've been doing a lot of mock drafts and I don't play best ball. So I'm not a best ball bro. However, I do play
Right.
a lot of Dynasty now. And in ADP, it's pretty amazing to see where he's being drafted because right now in rookie drafts, he's available somewhere within the 3rd round. And I think that being that this offense is ran obviously by Sean Payton, they got Bo Nix, and little spoiler for you guys if you didn't know this, Troy Franklin and Bo Nix played in college together. So there's already familiarity
Really?
there with the starting quarterback. I also love his size. He's 6'2", ran a really great 40 to showcase his athleticism, and he's a big play receiver that I think will really benefit within this Broncos system. And just to put a bow on this take, he's not costing you a very expensive amount to get him on your team. And I just think that with the route running that he's able to provide, being that you have Cortland Sutton there, Jerry Jeudy is now gone. Marvin Mims has been someone that hasn't really been much of a target share hog. I think this opens up Troy Franklin to have a really good situation and to be someone that you can actually add on your rosters for a really cheap cost. Now, the downside is I know that there is this great piece that I can actually link, but it talks about the success on where you draft certain players in rookie drafts. And there is a dip once you start getting into that 3rd round range, which is where you typically see Troy Franklin. But that's my argument, though, as well, is that he's not going to cost you much. So it's a low risk pick that could have some good upside. So that's why I'm a big fan of Troy Franklin, someone that I'm looking to even pull in my startup drafts. So for instance, I've seen him go in the I've seen him go like in the 9th to 10th round range in a startup, which is not bad at all. And by then you already have your established starters at wide receiver. And you usually, if you have multiple flex spots, you already have those filled out for the most part. So Troy Franklin is someone that I would see as a good upside pick for your fantasy rosters, especially as a rookie. So that's my first one. Spencer, who's your first rookie that you're looking to get on your roster?
Yeah, man. So the first one that I like, I'm going to go with Jonathan Brooks. Really like Jonathan Brooks, especially, how he was the draft capital that he got from the Panthers. So Jonathan Brooks selected 46th overall in the 2nd round. And just his college stats, yes, the first couple of years, he was sitting behind Roshan Johnson and Bijan Robinson. So this running back room at Texas was just absolutely insane. But this last season, he absolutely broke out. Over 1,100 rushing yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, over 200, almost 300 receiving yards, a receiving touchdown. So total his last season in college was over 1,400 total yards, 11 total touchdowns. And he's very efficient as well, 6.1 yards per carry and 11.4 yards per target. So very efficient when he was with Texas. And of course, like I said, the draft capital being selected in the 2nd round, his size, and of course, the current roster in Carolina. So right now you've got Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard's in the last year of his deal. Miles Sanders does have 2 years left on his deal, but man, and I've pretty much always been a Miles Sanders truther while he was in Philadelphia. He had 2 of his 4 seasons. 2 seasons were very good. That last season big breakout season. RB15 season, over 1,300 total yards. Just an incredible season, 10 total touchdowns or over 10 total touchdowns, something like that. I don't know it off the top of my head, but something incredible like that. Incredible enough to get him a big deal in Carolina. And last season, we just saw that fragility of his, right? Like he's fragile, and he gets too injured. And I think when we see Chuba Hubbard be as efficient as he is behind this pretty bad offensive line, I think what we're about to see from Jonathan Brooks will be incredible. And here's the thing. You're not having to spend a Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs type, Breece Hall type rookie pick on him right now. Because right now, even in Superflex leagues, Jonathan Brooks is going in the second round. I still have yet to see Jonathan Brooks go in the first round unless you are more than 12 team. If you're 14 team, 16 team, 14 team, I can see him going in the first round. But 12 team, 10 to 12 team, if you're 12 team, he's going pretty much 201, 202 area. If you're 10 team, he's pretty much going that 203, 204 area. And that's incredible. Same thing along the lines of him and Trey Benson are pretty much going back and forth. Pick your poison, take your pick on that one. Take your shot on your guy. If you like Trey Benson a little more, if you like Jonathan Brooks. I believe that the pathway for Jonathan Brooks to succeed is and be very fantasy relevant for Dynasty is there. And maybe not immediately, maybe not the first few games, but I would say we're going to see a lot of Jonathan Brooks even by the midway point of the season. But that's the rookie that I would take is Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, you know what? I like that pick because you're right. For starters, well, actually, this running back class wasn't really a strong one. But you're also correct in saying that it's not costing you much to still get this guy on your team, but he could have some big upside for you as well, because I know Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan both were at least top 5 picks. Of course, Bijan being among the top as well. But you see that with Brooks going where he's going around the second round, that's a pretty good value there, especially considering that this is a very shallow running back class. But yeah, it's a good take there, man. Okay, so my next one is going to be wide receiver Roman Wilson out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the reason why I'm really high on this guy is because very similar to that of Troy Franklin, the wide receiver room is a little shaky. So they traded Deontay Johnson over to the Titans, right? No. It was to the, I always forget. Is it the Panthers or the Titans? I always get those two mixed up. Deontay Johnson,
to the Panthers. Yeah.
To the Panthers, yeah. It's because they have very similar jerseys, similar colors.
Yep.
But and also we're live, so of course I go into a deep brain for it. But anyways, so very similar to that with what happened with the Broncos, where you saw a shift in the wide receiver room. You saw the same thing with the Steelers, and now you have George Pickens, who's now going to slide into that wide receiver one, just roll, and now you have Roman Wilson there. Good rookie who ran a very similar system with the Wolverines, now going with the Steelers, who are being led on the offensive front with Arthur Smith, who runs a very run-heavy scheme. And we saw that very same heavy run-heavy scheme with the Wolverines, which is where Roman Wilson played at. And I think that this benefits him because he's going into a similar system. He has good size, and I think that he's not necessarily a deep threat, but he ran a lot of the intermediate routes, which I think will be perfect for him, knowing that George Pickens is going to be the one that will get that, deep look, being that he's very talented down the field, has shown some really great highlights already, being able to catch the contested ball. I think that Roman Wilson fits in this in this wide receiver 2 role perfectly, and it goes all back also to the ADP, which I think is where you'll see most of the value when it comes to any player on whether you should draft them or not, is where they're being drafted. And Roman Wilson isn't costing you much as well. He's going late second is where I've seen him at the highest, and you're seeing usually the 3rd round, which is where you can get him. And for those of you that do maybe even 5-round rookie drafts, I think this is actually perfect value for you as well. I don't know that most of us do a lot of 3-round, but I think if you're still in that 3rd or 4th round range, keep your eyes out for guys like Troy Franklin as well as Roman Wilson. And it's also because of the fact of availability and potential target share that they can get off the bat as well as they kick off their seasons.
Yep. I like that, man. I like that a lot.
Yes, sir.
Well, my next one that I like. Yep. So my next one that I like. So I noticed you went 2 wide receivers. I'm going to go 2 running backs here. And I think that the draft class this year of running back, like you said, it's just so shallow. But there are a couple that we can take away. So Jonathan Brooks, I think, was one of the more easier ones, but I do still like him. This next one for me is Marshawn Lloyd, who recently got drafted by the Packers. And I think that Marshawn Lloyd definitely has. Now, this one's going to be you're drafting him, and you're kind of having to wait a little bit longer. He was a third-round pick. But Marshawn Lloyd, 5'9", 5'10", 215, 220 pounds, and coming out of South Carolina, well, coming out of USC, but mostly South Carolina the 3 years before. This guy really had a breakout season at USC, and of course, it wasn't necessarily too crazy. It was just a little over 1,000 total yards, 9 total touchdowns, but he was efficient. 9.7 yards per carry and 17.8 yards per target. So in the receiving game, over 200 yards. In the rushing game, over 800 yards at USC. And this guy's got a path, because we got to remember that Josh Jacobs' contract is essentially a one-year deal. Like, yes, there's more years attached to it, more money attached to it, but this wasn't a fully guaranteed deal, and the only thing fully guaranteed is this year one. So the way the Packers structured this was, if, let's say, Josh Jacobs is as inefficient as he was last season, then the Packers have an out. So after year one, if Josh Jacobs is running at a pace of, like last season, for example, last season he was 3.4 yards per carry, 5.4 yards per target. Awful numbers efficiency-wise. And if he plays like that again, the Packers have an out. And who's going to be the one to step up? Is it going to be A.J. Dillon? No. That guy kind of sucks. It's going to be Marshawn Lloyd. And Marshawn Lloyd's size, his skill, his speed, and again, now this is where the rookie draft capital comes into play. Now, it has risen in the past couple weeks. Ever since I made this video not too long ago now, I am 100% not saying it is because of the video that I made on my lowly little channel. What I am saying is that ever since I made that video, I have just noticed the market shift. So a couple weeks ago, I made this video about Marshawn Lloyd, that you can get him late third round. I have actually seen in 10-man leagues him go early fourth round. So in 12-team leagues, that would pretty much still be the end of the third round. But right now, you're looking at getting Marshawn Lloyd at the very end of the second round, early third round, which in my opinion is still good for if you are a team that let's say your RB1, RB2s are figured out, and you definitely are more filled out as a team that you can draft somebody like a Marshawn Lloyd and wait a year, because I really think that's how long it's going to take. We might get lucky if Josh Jacobs is super inefficient and just is not healthy again. We might get lucky and be able to see Marshawn Lloyd midway or way down the stretch of the season, but I do like him a lot. You're going to have to hold on to him, but Marshawn Lloyd is the second rookie that I'm going after right now.
Dude, yeah, that's so good. And yeah, I like his skill set, because he already is going to be slotted as that RB2. And we always go back to this as well. We never want to hope that someone gets injured, but if anything were to happen to Josh Jacobs, we've seen what this offense looks like when it's just A.J. Dillon. He doesn't really take over this backfield. And I think that Marshawn Lloyd is more than capable to really be successful, being that he has the athleticism, and plus you just love this offense too with LaFleur. He runs a pretty good system there as well. So yes, very good. All right, so let's go ahead and now get to the ones that we are looking to avoid, and I'll have you kick this one off. And actually, you know what? I'll be honest with you. When I saw our little notes that we share here, I was really surprised on this first one. So go ahead. The floor is yours, man.
All righty. So the first rookie that I'm going to say that I don't like is Rome Odunze. Now, the draft capital, yes, is nice. Obviously, a top 10 rookie pick, or just a top 10 NFL pick. But the thing about Rome Odunze is that, to me, this is just JSN all over again with this wide receiver room. JSN gets drafted. I'm not saying Rome Odunze is, because he's not, but even JSN, best wide receiver in that draft class, gets stuck in a situation with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who they just gave, Tyler Lockett a slight extension. So it's not like we're going to be able to see JSN really fully even do anything this year. It's really going to be now at this point, you're holding on for year 3. And with Rome Odunze, DJ Moore is locked in for years. Keenan Allen, I'm sure if he just balls out this year, I highly doubt the Bears are going to want to let him go. I mean, they would be willing to pay him if he's, you know, Mike Evans level of healthy and he plays to that degree like Mike Evans did this past season. Keenan Allen coming off the best season of his career. And then, of course, you get Rome Odunze. So Rome Odunze, if you draft him where you are having to draft him, you're going to be waiting a while. So not only is he in this wide receiver room that's stacked, going to a situation with an unproven QB in the NFL who will not be able to hold up 3 wide receivers this year. It's just a fact. We just got through the best rookie season in fantasy history with CJ Stroud, and even then, he was able to barely hold up 2 top 15 wide receivers for fantasy. Current rookie draft capital for Rome Odunze is around the 105 to 107 range. That is way too much for me, knowing that I have to wait till year 2, possibly year 3, to see a return on that pick. So if I have, let's say, the 105, the 106, or the 107, and I know I really needed wide receiver, well, Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison are gone, and Rome Odunze is not the guy I would pick there. To me, if I've got one of those 3 picks, but I know I'm not leaving this draft without one of these better wide receivers, I'm trading back. I'm getting a haul for the 105. I'm getting a haul for the 106 or 107, and I'm trading back to the 110, 111, 112, and I'm getting me some Keon Coleman action. I'm getting me some Ladd McConkey action. Guys that I know for a fact will produce a lot more in these next 2 years than Rome Odunze will. The only path Rome Odunze has is you have to pray on the downfall of Keenan Allen. You have to hope he gets injured. Otherwise, which is a big possibility, he could get injured. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. So that is why I do not like Rome Odunze. I love Rome Odunze, the talent. Don't like where we're having to draft him right now.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same boat with you, and I don't think you have to hope too much because we've seen Keenan Allen miss a handful of games over the past couple seasons. But
Yep.
of course, assuming that all goes well, you're right. He's going to be in a situation where in the pecking order, he's going to be the third one to get all those looks in the wide receiver room. But okay, so I'll go ahead and go with mine now. The first one that I'm going to fade away is going to be Xavier Worthy, and this isn't to say that I don't think he's talented. I just think that his ADP is getting too high for my liking. And
Okay.
I know he is he was so impressive in the combine. If I'm not mistaken, didn't he break like 2 records, like one being his own or something like that?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, and this guy is just a freak of nature. He's really quick. And of course, when you associate quick and Patrick Mahomes, it's hard to not also compare quick with Tyreek Hill and what Patrick Mahomes were able to do a few years ago in this offense. But the thing is, for me, he struggled in college with the contested catches. And of course, for me, I just get worried about how much you're paying up to actually get him on your roster. Now, of course, if there was any time where we were going to have to invest in a wide receiver, it'd be right now, especially considering that there's so many question marks with Rashee Rice, as you alluded to in the news section. I don't think he's going to spend too much time, being suspended. However, if God forbid something were to happen as far as injuries goes, we should see an uptick. However, this offense, though, in my opinion, though, in Kansas City is going to be more of a run-heavy one, very similar to what we saw this past season with them making that run to the Super Bowl, and especially with them now having some more weapons. I also think that Hollywood Brown is actually massively underrated, and I think that should also play a factor into how we're also assessing Xavier Worthy. So I'm not telling you to not draft him, but just be mindful of how much you're getting for him, because I would much rather, just like you said, I'll be more comfortable if I'm in a situation, and I think that Worthy's in a good range too, being in the late first. I just like better options such as Keon Coleman, just like you said. I also will maybe even go with Brian Thomas. I know that there is still Gabe Davis in that offensive room. However, I just like the situation if you're looking for a quick return, one that I believe that will hit a lot faster than some of these other ones like Xavier Worthy, and even the one that you mentioned with Medunze. I'd feel comfortable going with those options instead.
Yes, sir. And I think too, when we're talking about like the immediate return on these investments that we're making, it's not to say you can't pick guys that you can hold for a while. I mean, there are a lot of guys that, as long as I'm filled out, like if I believe that, for example, this draft was not running back heavy. So if you definitely feel like you are filled out in all the other positions, your running back is just a little needy, but maybe you've got your RB1, RB2, Marshawn Lloyd's a guy for you, Jonathan Brooks is a guy for you. this wide receiver room is so deep that if you've already got some good wide receivers, but you want to take a shot on a guy that you want to hold, then Rome Odunze could be your guy. But if you are
Yeah.
going into these drafts with top picks, it's a little bit that's where the issue starts to come. Top picks, and you need that immediate. Now, if you are let's just say you are a guy who you made it to your championship, won or lost, made it deep into the playoffs, won or lost, and the only reason you have a top pick is because you traded for a year or two prior, then there you go. Now you can select a guy and wait because, well, you only had that pick, didn't have your pick.
Right.
Somebody else, you know what I'm saying? So I think that it's not wrong to select people and have to wait on them. My only issue is just if you have these picks, not because you traded for them, but if you've got the 105 and you need that 105, Rome Odunze is not your guy. If you've got the 106, 107 and you need that 106, 107, Xavier Worthy's probably not your guy. So
Right.
my last guy here, and this definitely, I'm not trying to be hot takey just for the sake of hot takey. I'm being just how I honestly feel. My last guy here is Brock Bowers. Similar to the Odunze situation. Great NFL draft capital. But a pretty bad landing spot. And of course, it was based on a coin flip. So that's pretty ridiculous. But this tight end room is full already. Bowers coming in reminds me a lot of the Bills tight end room last year. But just imagine Knox being 3 to 4 years younger and highly drafted the year before. Yeah, I don't get it. So currently, I'm not seeing the path to top 6 rookie pick success year 1 or possibly even year 2. That's my issue. Right now, you have to draft him within your first 6 to 7 picks, similar to Rome Odunze. They're going around the same spot in rookie drafts, or else you're not getting him. The earliest I've seen him go, even in Superflex, is the 105. That's pretty ridiculous. The latest I've seen him go is about the 108. Now, maybe there's some leagues out there who recognize this, and he didn't go until the 109, 110. If he gets down to 110, 111 if you're in 12-man, 112 territory, now I'm feeling a lot more comfortable about it. But the 105 to 107 range, again, comes in here, and I can't justify that for Brock Bowers, and especially when we've got guys like Ben Sinnott, I definitely would feel a lot more comfortable going in the most of the time I'm seeing Sinnott go in 12-man leagues at the end of the second round, early third round. If he's still on the board by your 301 pick and you had the 101, the 201, and the 301 pick, now I'm feeling good about getting a tight end in Ben Sinnott in Washington with Jaden Daniels, who we know is going to be the tight end one over there. I would feel a lot better at the beginning of the third round getting a guy who already was a top 5 tight end for me in this draft class coming in. He may have been my tight end 3. I can't remember off the top of my head. Either way, top 5, possibly top 3 tight end for me pre-draft. And now in a good landing spot and good draft capital, Brock Bowers, way too high for me to even see that high of a return. So Brock Bowers is a guy I'm not liking in this draft class right now, or
and it's
process.
Yeah, and it's rough because a lot of the mock drafts that we saw before we had the NFL draft had him going in that range, and we thought, okay, yeah, this is going to be good value because we thought he was going to go to a situation such as New York where they needed some weapons. Right. However, with him going to the Raiders, that kind of hindered a lot of his value because, I mean, number one, the whole quarterback situation still isn't clear there. Plus, you already have Michael Mayer. It just isn't an offense that gets you excited for sure. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and round out mine, and mine is going to be a running back. So I know I've been going with wide receivers here for all my takes, but I'm going to put a bow on it with Blake Corum. And I get it. He was a third running back that was drafted out of this very shallow draft class when it comes to running backs. But for me, it all goes down back again to ADP. And I know that he is also – I mean, he has a skill set that is very similar to that of Kyron Williams. And that's why this offense was really excited to have this guy on this team. But what gets me worried is that very similar to what Spencer had shared about what kind of return are you going to get right away, Blake Corum is someone that I'm not going to see much of a return on. And it's not that he is drafted too high because he's probably going in that late second round range, which is apropos for a player like this. However, you're essentially getting a handcuff in this case because Sean McVay, and I know that Les Snead had said that they had drafted him because he has a skill set very similar to Kyron, and they want to reduce some of the potential workload of Kyron Williams, kind of because we know we did see him struggle with some injuries last year. But even then, McVay has shown historically that he is a 1 RB kind of guy. He has his workhorse, and he will make sure that he sticks with his guys. So I'm just worried about the playing opportunity. Now, I'm not telling you to not draft him, but I'm just saying to manage expectations. That this isn't someone that you should slot in as your RB2 to kick off the year. So if you're depleted at running back and you can't get your shot with where you're drafting at a Jonathan Brooks or even a Trey Benson, and I get that Trey Benson isn't necessarily the starter, but I believe that Connor, if anything were to happen to him, Trey Benson will shows the skill set to be the RB1 and could have a great season as well.
I love Trey Benson.
Yes, absolutely. But I don't see that same path for Blake Corum right now, considering that Kyron Williams had such a nuclear year last year. And for me was at least like the waiver wire champion because, he was someone that took most rosters to the championship promised land. So I'm just a little bit worried about that. So that's why for me, Blake Corum is someone that I would be shifting away from, not because of the talent, but because of, just the offense. And of course, it'll cost you in the lock of return that you'll get right away if he was in your roster.
I agree with that. And I think here's the thing. Either we can take McVay at his word or we can believe what history tells us. Both of the outcomes are not good for Corum because the outcome number one, like you said, is that Williams is going to be the main guy. Now, of course, you can pray on his downfall. Maybe he gets hurt and then Corum comes in. In which case, Corum will look nice, but he will not be the first one. It is going to be Williams. Or number two is that he's telling us the truth and it's just going to be a split backfield, heavily split backfield, in which case that's still not good. So then that just turns into it's not good for either one. So, I agree with your take there.
Very, very good way to put it there at the end. All right, so let's go ahead and land the plane here to go with the verse of the week. Mr. Spencer Smith, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so mine's going to be a few verses. I'm just going to read it, and then basically what this came to me this morning when I was getting ready, and it's this old song that the song is literally just the psalm itself. But let me read the psalm and then I'll tell you. So this is Psalm 63, and just starting at 1 here. Oh God, you are my God. Early I will seek you, and my soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. So I have looked for you in the sanctuary to see your power and your glory, because your loving kindness is better than life. My lips shall praise you. Thus I will bless you while I live. I will lift up my hands in your name. My soul shall be satisfied as with marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you on my bed, I meditate on you in the night watches, because you have been my help. Therefore, in the shadow of your wings, I will rejoice. So that's pretty much Psalm 63, 1-7. Now, what brought this to my mind this morning was when I was getting ready, I thought of this song. And the song is just Psalm 63, 1-4. And I don't know if you ever heard it, but I want to say like when I was in middle school, my dad had this CD. I don't know where he got it, but he had this CD. And I know these songs are on, I know they're on YouTube. I don't know if they're on any streaming platforms, but they're these songs where this guy, I don't know if he was a worship leader. I don't know if he was in a band. I don't know what, I really don't even know who he was, but he decided to record this album of all these different psalms, and it was him. I believe he made all the instrumentation, and he got like some kids to do the background vocals, and it was literally just songs that were only the words from the psalm. So like Psalm 63, 1-4, and then he would just sing the psalm. And I was just thinking of it this morning. I was like, that psalm is literally just the joy in the fellowship of God, and a psalm that David wrote when he was in the wilderness of Judah. And it's just one of those, like, it really kind of lifts you up, really makes you feel better going about your day there. But yeah, that's kind of what made me think of it. And that is my verses of the week there.
Man, that's so good, man. It's so amazing how we can get these verses, just ingrained in us as a youth, and then as
Right.
we grow older, we're able to still benefit from the fruit of that word.
Mhm.
All right, cool. So with mine, I'm gonna go ahead and go with Proverbs 22, verse 17. And the reason why I chose this one is because I think me and Spencer shared this when we first kicked off the show. We had said that one encouragement that we want to give you guys, if you're looking to get plugged in and get into your scripture reading, start with Proverbs. Just read one once a day, have it align with the day of the month. And for mine, it was Proverbs 22 for today. And I read this verse, and it was verse 17, and it reads as follows. It reads, "Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge." Now, I've heard Spencer say this a lot, and it's true. This book, the book of Proverbs, is the book of wisdom, and
Mhm.
it is so important for us to not only hear the wisdom that we may be given, but to also to apply it. And the application part is the part that you're going to always see the most growth in. And just to
Mhm.
give you guys a practical example, I've always thrived whenever I'm able to connect with individuals that have already walked the path that I'm currently walking right now. So whether that's the path of a husband, the path of a father, just the path of a man just growing into these different roles. And I've always sought out just wisdom because I heard this quote a few years back, and it's stuck with me ever since. And it goes as follows. It says, "A smart person learns from their mistakes, but a wise person learns from the mistakes of others."
Yes, sir.
And with the book of Proverbs, it's such an enriching book of so much wisdom, so much just practical wisdom that you can apply in really any area of life. And for me, I just love the word that it says, "Incline your ear." So not just only hear it, but just incline, like really seek it, like really listen to
Mhm.
the wisdom that's around us, because all truth, all things that are fruitful, all come from God. And I think it would behoove us to make sure that we always incline our ears to it, and to also apply our hearts, because our hearts are going to be the ones that are going to need to shift to be able to make these
Yes.
actions. And as a married man, someone that's going to be married now, it's going to be 8 years in a few months. But the point is, though, when I first started dating my wife, a lot of my action was driven from my emotion. Now that we've been married, we know each other. Now my actions need to also drive my emotions. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
my emotion was what me being in love, me being excited is what got me wanting to open the door for her when I take an hour date. But now that there's
Mhm.
familiarity, I've had to now have my heart take action when I don't feel like it, when I'm tired, when
Right.
I'm exhausted. And that's part of why I just wanted to share this, to make sure that you recognize that our hearts are going to be a big, a determining factor on whether or not we will act on the wisdom that we are given. And I want to encourage you all, incline your ear to wisdom and apply your heart, so that way you can always know the knowledge that is given to us to thrive on
Mm.
this earth.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome, man. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you that are watching here on YouTube, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe. We have a lot more stuff coming down the table. And of course, as always, Mr. Spencer Smith, I would love for you to encourage everyone on how they can follow us on all the social media platforms.
Yes, sir. So at Dynasty Wire on Instagram, at Dynasty Wire on TikTok, at the Dynasty Wire on X, artist formerly known as Twitter. You guys can follow us over there. Make sure you like this. Make sure you guys also follow us on the podcast platforms, whether you're listening on Apple or Spotify, so that you never miss when we do these uploads. And like we said at the beginning, we've been off for a couple of weeks, but hey, we're back now. We're back now. So
Yes,
make sure you
sir.
subscribe so that you don't miss it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, it was a fun episode. We'll be back next week with another episode for you guys. From Spencer Smith, from Ivan Herrera, thank you so much. And we'll see you in the next one.